How are online community programs running in 2023? Well, that's what we're going to be looking at in today's video. This is an analysis of the entire CMX Community Trends report from 2023. I'm Todd Nilson. I run a company called Clocktower Advisors that helps organizations and enterprises from across the world to create thriving online community strategies and digital workplaces. I love the community space. I've been working in it for well over 10 years now, and I'm involved with it because it's a real opportunity to help connect people to do meaningful work, connecting people with brands, helping them to live more fulfilled lives, making more meaningful choices. The report that comes out from CMX every year has a lot of interesting nuggets in it. I always look forward to it, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize just how much hard work goes into creating a report like this. I'm a little hard on the methodology and the ideas, but I will never be hard on the people because I recognize the truly deep work that goes into building something like this. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing that work. There are a couple of organizations that put out this kind of research. Community Roundtable is another one. There's the community professionals down in Australia. I've seen do others, and there have been a few other places where the data comes out, but CMX has been doing this work since at least back in 2017, maybe longer, and I've come to look forward to the report every year. Let's jump in and take a look at this section. This is the Community Operations and Programs section. If you missed the earlier video, we'll put a link to it up here and give you an opportunity to jump in and see that one if you want to learn about the community profession first. This particular piece is, it's got a lot of stuff. There's a grab bag of items in here around how long a community has existed, its stages, community teams, frustrations, different community programs, types of events, and even some of the platforms. So lots of interesting stuff here. Let's go ahead and dive in. If you're reading along in your report, these start around page 21. And that's the section that says how long community has existed and the stage of community. This is an interesting section. 2022 had a little more context from previous years' reports. I kind of liked seeing that table. I feel like there really wasn't much movement. I've looked back at the 2022 report, and really those numbers haven't shifted that much. Those communities that have existed for less than a year have only changed by 1 percentage point, down 1% to 13% this year. 1 to 2 years, it's up a percentage point. 3 to 4 years, it's up 2 percentage points, and 5 more years is down 2 percentage points. I don't know what this means. I don't know if it means anything because the percentage points are so low. If anything, it's just kind of saying it's pretty slow movement in terms of communities. We're not seeing like a sudden growth in one or more areas of how long communities have been around. The second question, which was which option best describes the stage of your community program, there was a little bit of movement here. 40% this year said that they were scaling an existing community. That's down 7% from the past year. Building new community is down 2%. It's 25% this year. Maintaining an existing community, that's a new category. They didn't have that in 2022. 17% said that they were just maintaining, sustaining what was there. And I think that goes along with how I tend to think about the community life cycle, that when you get to a certain point, you're either sustaining or evolving or declining. It looks like these guys added that as an area. Those who are revitalizing a community was down 7% to 14%. And those who said they're doing something else, I don't know what they're doing, maybe they're blowing up balloon animals, said that was 4%. It was down 1% from last year. The other category drives me a little nuts. Give me some idea of what was said there. Give me a couple of verbatims if you can. Not sure what's happening. Maybe I missed that in the report. Those 7% swings for scaling a community and revitalizing a community are a little bit concerning to me. Something to keep an eye on in future reports. Turning to the next page, this is page 22. Who participates in your community? Now, the past version of this particular question was split into primary participant versus just a participant. And so it's a little hard to compare. I think so there's some wild swings in the numbers here, I guess, is the caveat I'll give you. So for customers as the primary audience, for the community, or the primary participants in the community. That's up slightly from 69% in 2022 up to 71% this year. Employees from 53 to 61, that's up as well. Users are down from 54 to 53%. Advocates are up. Again, not a bunch of changes. One item that was newly added was partners. 42% said that they were the primary participants. Partner communities have been around for a long time. I'm surprised that wasn't on there as a category before. Maybe I missed it. Industry members stayed exactly the same. Developers went up. Influencers went down. Volunteers went down. Alumni went down, and others about the same. The last item on this list, token, you might have been puzzling over this, saying, what does this mean? What are we talking about? Well, if you look back in the 2022 report, the category actually said token holders or owners. In other words, NFT holders, which of course was hot in Web3 last year, a little less hot this year, and 5% though, it's still holding as equal. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Moving on to the next question, about how many total members are there in their community. This one was a little bit hard to track because the previous report in 2022 had broken it down by the age of the community. There's no context here. I think they maybe averaged out the numbers from the last time around. Best I could do was, based on the 2022 tables, I compared these numbers with a 3 to 4 year old community, just for giggles. So what I was finding was that communities of 1 to 99 members were up by about 2 percentage points. Communities of 100 to about 1,000 members was up from 18 to 26%. Communities which are the sweet spot between 1,000 and 10,000 members, 31% stayed exactly the same. Those between 10,000 and 100,000 members were down a bit from 32 to 21%. And then the larger categories, 100 to 500,000, just changed by a percentage point. It was down 1%. 500,000 to 1 million was equal at 2%. And the freakishly large communities of 1 million or more members was up by 3 percentage points to 5%. Again, take it with a big grain of salt because I am not sure if those numbers are at all comparable. Again, more data points to consider. Turning to page 23, the approximately how many employees work full-time on your community team question. Minor deviations here, nothing too concerning. It's kind of weird. Sometimes we get the table seeing past year's results, sometimes we don't. It seems like where there was space to include more, they did. I wish they had done it a little bit more. I wish they had given the full count of people that had answered questions. Again, it's methodology quibbles, but again, we have what we have, and I'm grateful for the information that we got. The next section is about community team and department, and the question is, what department is your community team a part of? And this is kind of a breakdown of, if you're working in a particular department. Marketing was the number one area. 30% of those who responded said that they were part of the marketing department. That's up by 2 percentage points, not a bunch. Those who had their own community department was down by 2 percentage points, so we're seeing some shift there. Those who said other went from 14 to 16% from 2022 to 2023. Some examples would be nice here. The other areas, not a lot of shift. Products went from 6 to 5%. Engineering went from 3 to 2%. You may be wondering about the middle category that just says our company does. If you're trying to interpret this, the actual response was our company does not have a structure. So in other words, we don't have departments. Maybe you're a startup, maybe it's a free reign, non-hierarchical kind of organization. In any case, that went down by a percentage point as well. But again, just wanted to offer that gloss. On the next page, page 25. There's a question about the percentage of communities who have a full-time person for various functions. So these would be dedicated roles, and things like engaging directly with the community would be like a dedicated role. Focusing on operations and processes, so like an operations community person would be a dedicated role, and so forth. So these full-time specialized roles dropped across the board. Yikes, from the prior year. So they were definitely down year-over-year change. I'm glad that they put the 2022 numbers onto this particular table. It helped, but the drop of 8% of those who engage directly with the community as their full-time dedicated role is significant and a little concerning. I'm not sure why there'd be such a drop in what's a primary role, but again, maybe the implication here is that it's not a primary role anymore. You're expected to do many of these things, and so you're not dedicated to just doing that particular piece of it. The next section is about frustrations, and didn't see a bunch of change here. I'm just going to call out on page 26, the table is what are your top frustrations about managing your community and its activities. And some of the things, I'll just call out a couple of these that were interesting. Difficult to consistently engage members was the top response. That's consistent. 40% said that was the case. This is actually down by 6 percentage points from last year. So that is a notable drop. Hard to say how significant that is, but that was interesting. The complaint that efforts are largely manual, 34% said that this year. The exact percentage said that last year as well. So maybe the new tools that we have haven't helped. Maybe we haven't been able to afford those new tools for whatever reason. The situation hasn't changed. Community professionals, there's still about a third of us that are struggling to fulfill things manually, and that's not good. And maybe the new world of AI is going to help us to deal with some of those things. The other one that kind of stood out for me was difficult to get buy-in from executives. That went from 14% in 2022 down to 10%. Higher trust, that maybe harkens back to an earlier question. In the previous video, I talked a little bit about that for satisfaction areas for community professionals. And then finally, there was a drop in those who were frustrated by negativity or toxic behavior in the community. That went from 9 down to 5%. So that is possibly significant as well. What was missing was frustration about hard to manage complex governance or voting. And I think this is a reference to Web3. Not sure, but it's missing this time around. I'm going to flip a couple pages here. Go to the section on automating community, which is bottom of page 29. There's a chart here about asking the question, do you use any of the following community automation or data aggregation tools? So earlier on in the description section, which I appreciate when I get these, it said only 36% of community professionals are using tools that can help automate some tasks. That sounds like a really bad thing. But guess what? There were 43% who said that they use these type of tools in 2022. So that's telling me that there were maybe budget cuts and not opportunities to even play, with some of these other tools that are here. The report also mentions that there's very little standardization across tech stacks. That's intriguing to me because I would say with the AI disruptions that we're seeing right now, mid-year 2023, it's probably likely going to continue that there's a lack of standardization. There's just so many new tools hitting the market and so many new things to try right now. It's likely going to be chaotic for a little bit longer. The question on this page, do you use any of the following community automation or data aggregation tools? Other came in as the top category at 35%. That's up from 27% in 2022. Other coming in at the top of the line fairly begs to have a couple of examples of what other stood for. Like, what did people write in? What did they suggest? Some of those things would be interesting to know. A new category here was custom or in-house tools for automation. 27% said that. There were a couple of other new categories as well that didn't appear in the 2022 report. These were Talkbase, Threado, Grazidi, and Ahoy Connect. I assume Grazidi, they're talking about the new Search Unify product, but they didn't really say anything in here about that. I'll just say on page 30, the tech stack question about does your company data connect to your CRM? 42% said they have a CRM, but it doesn't connect community and customer data. Seems like an awfully high number, and I'm a little surprised by that, but I guess I'm not shocked. Page 31, what type of programs does your community host or offer? I would say this year there's more categories, but there are confusing overlaps that made it difficult for me to interpret the data comparing to last year. For example, the category of forums and message boards and chat were conflated in last year's report. said there were 90% said that they used that as their entry to community, or that was part of their program. This year it's split into two areas, which is a little bit strange. Also, live events and conferences and/or events. I don't know how those two things compare. And there's numbers here in both spots. Those were one category in the previous year, and 75% said they were important. So the numbers are comparable here. I don't know. I feel like they confused it up a little bit on this particular question. The next page is page 32, online forums and message boards. And if we take a look at this page, there's a little gloss here saying that more organizations are moving management of their online forums and message boards in-house. I'm not seeing bunches of difference here. They're saying that one moderator for forums and message boards is common. But if you look at the stats at the bottom of the page, those places that are saying that they have only one moderator is 32% this year versus 26% last year. That is the most dramatic difference, and it's significant, but it's, I don't know. I think that's maybe for more startup communities. I wasn't getting bent out of shape about that. So I'm not sure that it needed the full gloss. Page 33 is about platforms, online forums, and message boards. And this is kind of the roundup of what kind of platforms the different community professionals are using who responded to the forum surveys. And I was a little surprised by something here. The major enterprise platforms are, by and large, missing in action, except for Salesforce. Khoros, Insighted, Vanilla, Higher Logic, none of these guys are showing up on this list, which puzzled me a little bit, right? Because certainly the types and sizes of organizations that respondents came from, I would think there would be at least a couple of enterprise platforms in there, but nothing. So a little bit surprising. These showed up in other years, so Slack and Discord and Facebook groups, all these were here before, except for WhatsApp. WhatsApp did not appear in prior years, but now WhatsApp has a community option. The ones that went up this year were Slack, Discord, Discourse, and Twitter communities for some reason. Not by a bunch. None of them went up by a bunch. Page 34 is a continuation of that listing, but the question is, how satisfied are you with your platform for managing your community? And Khoros is gone from the list. It wasn't there this year. It was last year. Discourse and Discord, everybody else was pretty much there. The only enterprise platform that I'm seeing here was Salesforce. Across the board, with the exception of WhatsApp, which is a new addition, that very satisfied category went down from the previous year's numbers. So Discourse went from 50% satisfaction, very satisfied, down to 42% this year. Discord from 50 to 39. Custom Solutions went from 32 to 24. Slack went from 47 to 22. Salesforce from 23 to 19. Facebook groups from 31 to 16, and LinkedIn groups from 29 to 13. So those who were very satisfied were fewer. That's significant. And then if you look at the other end of the scale, those who were not satisfied, those numbers tended to go up. Discourse went from 6 to 13% not satisfied. Discord was the only one that I think they went down because there wasn't a number in it this year. It looks like maybe it was 1%, but it was 7% in the prior year. So I'll amend that. They did okay, but they were about the only ones, except for WhatsApp, that was a new category. Custom Solutions went from 13% dissatisfaction to 21% dissatisfaction. Slack went from 11 up to 15% dissatisfaction. Salesforce went from 23 to 38% dissatisfaction. And Facebook groups from 24 to 32. LinkedIn groups from 17 to 22. The headline here is, you either love these platforms or you hate them. Like, I think we're seeing an attenuation to either end of the scale. And if you love them, you'll love them. If you hate them, you hate them. But those numbers are squeezing at either end. On the events side, page 35, I'll just note that virtual events, 90% stayed the same as last year. In-person events went from 29 to 59% of the organizations responding said that they were running in-person events. So that is definitely a doubling. And then hybrid went from 28 to 34%. So it went up modestly. which is not super surprising. There's a new table there talking about like what they thought the reasons were for in-person versus virtual events and what are some of the use cases. That's useful if you're doing some event planning, maybe thinking that through. Event platforms is on page 36. I won't say much about that except that I'm not shocked that Zoom is doing great and continues to go up. Page 37 is about how satisfied are you with your platform for managing events. This didn't exist last year, or at least I haven't been able to find it from the previous year's report. Zoom, again, comes at the top of the list. Bevy shows up on the list, along with Hangouts and Teams, Eventbrite, and Meetup. I wasn't seeing any of the other custom platforms like Hopin, or there's some others out there that I would have expected to maybe see, making the list. Page 38 is about events management. What best describes how you manage your events. The numbers are consistent. You're getting 22 versus 23 here. I'm not going to give you the color commentary on it. I'll just say it looks like in terms of the teams that are responsible for managing companies' virtual events, it looks like there's overall an increase in the number of cross-team involvements across the board here. And I guess that's a good thing, a little more collaboration among teams and groups. So page 39 is a question about, do you plan on launching a community-led event program in 2023? The same question in 2022, people said 49% of those surveyed said they were planning on launching community-led event programs in 2022. Only 28% said they were planning to do so in 2023. So again, maybe the effort involved with getting member-led, community-led, kinds of events off the ground, maybe that's changed a little bit. Page 40 is community contribution and rewards. This is a new section from other years. I think it's a generally useful benchmark, and I'm really grateful that was included. The kinds of things that are good outcomes from running a community. I think these are all things worth tracking. Page 41 is on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the headline here, unfortunately, is that only 45% of the organizations have specific goals related to DEI for their community, down from 57% in 2021. Has DEI lost its steam in the community space? And if so, that is tragic. We need to be doing more to consciously create more diversity and inclusion and welcome this to our community spaces that we build. That's it. This was a long stretch. I hope you stuck with me. There's a lot of good stuff in this section of the report. The next section is going to be on the business value of community, getting into some metrics in other areas. I hope you join me for that. If you haven't already, I would love to invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel for the Clocktower Advisors channel, and check out some of our other videos. We do live streams every 2 weeks. We're going to be starting those up again towards the end of the month of May here. But in the meantime, would love to hear your comments and your takes on the CMX report if you followed it. And of course, if you can like and share this with your friends, I would be grateful as well. Until then, build great communities together. Talk to you soon.